From a courtroom in Beecham County, Alabama, it's the IGN Digigods. Please welcome two men who asked the question, "You were serious about that?" That's a Joe Pesci impression. Wade Major and Mark Kaiser.
First time Corey's ever cracked up doing an intro. Oh, Corey.
That was written by Eric Altieri and Joe Pesci.
Long-time listener, Eric Altieri.
And whoever wrote that movie that he did with the thing with the Vinny, the cousin.
Right.
Who wrote My Cousin Vinny?
Mark,
look up My Cousin Vinny.
Mark, look up My Cousin Vinny.
And Dale Launer.
There we go.
See? I knew that.
Dale Launer. Yep, it's amazing the miracle that we can do.
True story.
Yep. My Cousin Vinny was a true story. Isn't it amazing the things we can do with audio editing?
No, wait, that was live.
No, yes, it was. So, Mark,
yes, sir.
A friend of ours, a colleague of ours, has written a book.
Do you think Kirk Honeycutt has any friends? Can you see Kirk Honeycutt like knocking back a beer with like his buddies, watching the game? Actually, I think I could.
Sure, of course.
That means nothing. We always like Kirk Honeycutt. He's a great writer.
Kirk's a fantastic writer, a good colleague, great film critic. He's always a first-rate guy, and he has written a book that I'm surprised didn't exist until now. John Hughes, A Life in Film, the genius behind Ferris Bueller, The Breakfast Club, Home Alone, and more. And it's like the standalone ultimate companion to John Hughes movies.
This is, we had a Woody Allen book similar to this, and I have to say that this one eclipses it in every possible way, in terms of writing, in terms of research, just in terms of the visual presentation. This book is just terrific. It's getting a lot of play, actually. I know, like, the New York Post did an article on it last week, which is nice. It has a foreword by Chris Columbus, so obviously Chris Columbus is on board. He directed the Home Alone films. Yeah. And so there you go. So this is just a terrific book. It's got lots of anecdotes and lots of behind-the-scenes photographs, lots of quotes. He interviews everybody. He goes picture by picture. It's just a terrific book. And John Hughes was such a beloved filmmaker, and it was such a shock when he died in 2009 that, as Wade says, it's just bizarre that no one has really done anything comprehensive on his life and career. Obviously, John Candy, Steve Martin, he worked with just some of the greats, and Dan Aykroyd, and he was just a great director, just a real humanist who really understood the teenage experience, and he was a great filmmaker, and Kirk has done him proud with John Hughes, A Life in Film. Again, just a lot of great anecdotes, a lot of great photos, behind-the-scenes photos, and you really get a newfound appreciation of John Hughes and his particular niche in film history and how he exploited it with just compassion and love and just insight, and he was great.
Very, very true. So go get yourself John Hughes, A Life in Film. It's really good. We just can't say enough good things about this, and we love Kirk. He's a first-rate guy and a great writer. Really a fun writer. It's a fun read. It is. And you can't really pay better tribute to a guy like John Hughes. John Hughes was an amazing guy. I mean, just a good person. Really extraordinary. He basically checked out of Hollywood because he didn't want to raise his kids in Hollywood.
He lived in wherever he lived, Illinois, Indiana, somewhere. Where did he live?
It was back east.
Back east somewhere.
Back east, yeah. He just wanted to give his kids a normal life, and after an amazing career like that, to do that, it's just like, wow.
He died in New York City.
Yep.
He was born in Lansing, Michigan.
Anyway, I want to go through a few things real quickly. We're mostly focusing on, we got some television this week. We've got some more kid vid, like I didn't do enough last week, and we've got a gigantic gobs of classic movies. Great stuff from Olive, from Twilight Time, from Kino. It's amazing how many classic movies have come out. Can't even keep up with this stuff, so I'm going to do my best to kind of go through that while Mark goes and takes a nap. I got some foreign stuff if we can get through it, but first I want to make mention of a couple of documentaries that are recently out. One of them is called Open Sesame, the story of seeds. And everybody's kind of focusing now on how, on bees, the whole bees thing, right? How, like, if the bees go away, humanity dies.
No, it doesn't. Forget bees. Bees suck. I hate bees. I want them all to die. We'll be fine.
Well, this is similar. This gets into this is from True Mind, and this is a really interesting doc. It is. Obviously, people are can certainly debate parts of this, but they should. The idea here is that how we need seeds, like more than anything in the world, we need seeds. They're not just to grow the food that we eat, but that seeds are essential to just the way the whole ecosystem works and how many textiles come from plants and so forth and so on. And it is really interesting that the seeds are almost becoming like land. They're becoming property of sovereign states, and people are trying to monopolize seed trade. It's really an interesting concept. And then there is also a documentary this was in theaters apparently, obviously not theaters around here, which is weird because he was governor of California, but in a more conservative time. The Reagans, The Legacy Endures. Obviously, there's a certain partisanship to this, but if you are of the ilk, it's just a lovely love story between Ron and Nancy. A friend of mine used to, probably still does, wear a Ron and Nancy watch, which I always thought was a little bit strange. But nonetheless, this is kind of, it's a puff piece. It's the Ron and Nancy love story, and it was in theaters, and it did a little bit of business. So somebody out there will love this. And then, before we get into some hardcore television, got a few newish movies that are probably worth making mention of. None of these really got exposure in theaters, but they're worth checking out. Believe Me is on Blu-ray. Fairly decent cast. These are all people that you've seen in other things. You probably just didn't know who they were. Cinqua Walls, Alex Russell, Miles Fisher, Max Adler. And then also in lesser parts, Christopher McDonald, Nick Offerman. You've seen them in all kinds of stuff. Christopher McDonald, most famously, is forever going to be known not as any of the, like he was in Quiz Show and he's been in a few other things, but he will primarily be known as the guy who was Gina Davis's husband in Thelma and Louise.
Ooh,
remember that?
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
had a few scenes.
That's what everybody knows him. That's what everyone knows him as. No, Believe Me is actually Nick Offerman is really, really good in this. By the way, Nick Offerman is. It doesn't he kind of sometimes remind you of Zach Galifianakis? Like if Zach Galifianakis weren't completely insane, he'd be Nick Offerman. Yeah,
but they both have that weird they're on
square head.
They're on a different frequency than the rest of us kind of humor.
Yeah. Well, anyway. So this is about a guy who cannot get back into college. He's just too broke. So he gets his three roommates together, and they basically start their own religion or their own church. And it's got some commentary. It's got some social commentary. It's got some points to make. And then we also have another zombie movie here. There's never enough zombie movies. This is Zombie World from Dread Central. Most of these zombie things I think are just junk, and they're made way too inexpensively. And in the wake of things like all the bigger budget stuff, World War Z and whatnot, they even like 28 days later, 28 weeks later, 28 weeks.
Well, there was 28 days, and then there was 28 weeks.
28 weeks is the better one. I actually like it better.
Yes, that's the one with Robert Carlyle.
Friggin' amazing. I like
Robert
Carlyle flips out and then vomits blood all over the side of the train that his kids are in. And
damn right.
Oh my gosh, it's just horrific. No, this one's not bad. It's kind of second tier World War Z, but it's okay. It's all right. So Zombie World, it means it's the whole world. In other words, it's a World War Z thing. That's okay. Then we've got Frankenstein versus the Mummy, which is new style, right? It's like our new Frankenstein versus our new Mummy, and it's okay. It's gory and gruesome and horrific, and director Damien Leone does a good job of trying to really, really, crank it up a notch and take this into our new horror era. It's still lower budget. It's lower tier, but it's fans won't be disappointed. Horror fans. And we got a thing here with Rutger Hauer, as long as we're talking about rebooting Blade Runner with a much older Harrison Ford, which has been a topic of discussion on the Facebook page, by the way.
Which is weird, because in Blade Runner, is Harrison Ford not a replicant?
See, now I made this comment. Okay, you're going to say, well, he can't live for that long. And the comment I made was, maybe it takes place the next day, and and he looks like hell because that's what Sean Young will do to a guy.
In real life.
In real life. We know the whole James Woods thing, right?
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding me?
Oh, my gosh.
She glued his what to his what? Fill in the blank, folks. She glued his blank, like a match game, already X-rated match game. She glued his blank to his blank.
She's insane. She really is.
Remember that story when she showed up to audition for a Catwoman in Tim Burton's Batman, dressed as Catwoman?
Yeah. Crazy. Well, does she still make movies, or is she stalking someone or something?
No, she's Sean Young.
Okay.
She's probably like, in her mid-50s, and she's too crazy to, be hired, and she's yesterday's news, and now she was an ingenue, and she doesn't want to play she probably does want to play the mom.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyway.
Well, she's 55.
Well, anyway, this is a kind of a cyber thriller in the future. Rutger Hauer is this crazy, crazy rich billionaire who is dying, and he basically cuts a deal with this biotech company to help cure him of his affliction. But there is an interesting little angle to it, because it essentially becomes kind of like it becomes sort of like a game. So it suddenly at that point turns a little bit into one of these. I don't want to say not like the Running Man, but it's a little. It starts to feel a little bit like the Running Man at a certain point. Anyway, really, really nice production value. Decent genre film. Nice to see Rutger Hauer kind of getting back in the saddle again a little bit. He was sort of on the outs there for a while.
Well, he's weird.
Yeah, I know he is. And then we've got The Mule. The Mule should be a better film than it is. It's got a really good cast. Hugo Weaving is always so interesting to me. He's in this with a bunch of other guys: Leigh Whannell, Ewan Leslie, Angus Sampson, John Noble. John Noble shows up in a lot of these B movies, but it's Hugo Weaving who really makes it work. And the whole thing is, it's about drug mules, right? It's about one guy who has just a gob of narcotics in his stomach, and he decides to not. How do I put this in a really courteous way? When he's held up by the police, he decides that he is not going to allow his excretory functions to accommodate them, so that they can see what he's carrying inside of him. You fill in the blanks. It's a little bit rude, but it's all right. It's a novel idea. I give them that much credit. And then we've got Poker Night, which is a horror film that this is from the Accelerator Macabre line. The only decent things about this are some of the casting, which includes Ron Perlman and Giancarlo Esposito, who are always good. Ron Perlman turns up in everything these days. Including, obviously, our friend Charles Lazarica's movie.
That's right.
Ron Perlman he's in Drive. Last week we mentioned a little bit about Drive. This, I don't know, something doesn't quite work about this. I saw maybe a third of this, and it just kind of started running out of steam really, really quickly. So I don't know. Maybe this needed Hugo Weaving as well. I don't know. Ron Perlman, I feel like he's kind of doing the same thing over and over. He's just being that tough mug-faced guy. And then, as long as we're on the subject of games, this is a lovely, sweet little movie. It's got Janine Garofalo and Ralph Macchio in it, along with Olympia Dukakis and F. Murray Abraham. And you're thinking, my goodness, there's a couple of Oscar winners from the 80s there. And Ralph Macchio is the Karate Kid. And he's, what is he, 50 years old now? The Karate Kid is 50 years old? It's crazy.
The Karate Old Man.
And Janine Garofalo, who hardly does anything anymore. But this is actually a sweet film. It's about a 10-year-old girl who gets mentored as a chess master by F. Murray Abraham. And it feels a little bit at times like Searching for Bobby Fischer, but on a lower budget level with a little girl. But it's really sweet. It's a good family film, and I would say it's a nice discovery. So that is called a Little Game. It's good. It's good. All right, Mark, what else do we have?
Oh, we have a very interesting documentary about Richard Pryor. Now, Richard Pryor, of course, has not really been covered in the documentary or fictional film worlds, which is bizarre because he had such an amazing, interesting life. I mean, you're talking about a guy whose mother was a prostitute and his grandmother ran a brothel.
Really?
Okay, Richard Pryor, you realize that Richard Pryor's mother was a prostitute.
I did not realize
Richard
that.
Pryor grew up in his grandmother's brothel in Peoria.
I don't think I knew that.
I mean, that's where his life started. Imagine where it headed. And now we have Richard Pryor, Omit the Logic, which is from Magnolia. It's a pretty good talking head documentary with a lot of good B-roll, a lot of good clips of him doing his act. It's got Mel Brooks and Dave Chappelle and Whoopi Goldberg and Lily Tomlin and Paul Mooney and Robin Williams. So it's good. Richard Pryor, Mythologic. Obviously, this is not. This is comprehensive only in the sense that it's the best that's out there. I think that there is a more comprehensive documentary on Pryor to be made, but until that time, this is particularly fine. Oh, Mythologic. Check that out. Also, great documentary on Edison called Edison, the Father of Invention. Edison was such an interesting guy. You look at him like the guy who, people, it's so reductive. They say, oh, he invented the light bulb and the movie camera. I mean, this guy had a very interesting life. He was incredibly competitive.
Unbelievable. I mean, not only a great inventor, but he basically was the first studio mogul.
Yeah.
He became the first studio mogul. I mean, he was an amazing businessman, a ruthless businessman.
That's right. He was.
But the modern world wouldn't exist without Edison.
I mean, not only did he invent, great things that improve the world, like electricity and whatnot, and the movie camera. I mean, here's a guy who tried to make it so that the state could kill people using electricity. I mean, he was one of the ones who actually was kind of like he was the one who was making sure that electrocution would be a viable form of capital punishment.
Yep.
So little stories like that really fill out the Edison life, and you really learn a lot about that in Edison, the Father of Invention. Definitely check that out. Speaking of all things old, we have the 60s, the decade that changed the world.
This is terrific. This is really terrific.
This is a terrific series, as Wade says. This was on CNN. It was executive produced by Tom Hanks and Gary Getzman, his Playtone producing buddy. All the episodes are here. There's 10 of them, and it just goes kind of year by year. Television comes of age, and the space race, and the assassinations of Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy, and of course here on the. It's been a couple weeks now, but still, wait, here on the cover.
Yes, there he is, Leonard Nimoy.
Leonard Nimoy. Anyway, you're right. Let's just say that your parents would probably really enjoy sitting down with the 60s. It's a great documentary. It's pretty much as comprehensive as you're going to get. 10-part series, very, very good. Also, we have another documentary from PBS's American Experience. Leroy Robert Ripley, who was the one who sort of invented
Ripley's
Believe It or Not. He was an interesting guy. He grew up during the Depression, and he was kind of a nerd growing up. And then the guy was kind of a bit of a circus ringmaster of just colorful weirdos and freaky odd people, and he wound up inventing Ripley's Believe It or Not. And I used to have those books,
Yeah.
I used to love those books.
Well, the old they used to have those shorts ahead of movies. I mean, there were a lot of Ripley's Believe It or Not shorts that ran in the shorts program before films in the 1930s.
Right. And then to this day, on the corner of Hollywood and Highland,
still with the dinosaur.
Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum with the dinosaur popping out of the roof.
Yep.
So Ripley's Believe It or Not, that's very interesting. Rise of the Black Pharaohs is the other. We have a couple more PBS things to talk about. Rise of the Black Pharaohs. This takes place in Egypt around 800 BC.
This is an interesting bit of Egyptian history.
Well, it's all about these. It's about these archaeologists, and they go to Egypt. Actually, they go to Sudan, and they're digging up the truth about these black pharaohs because they were out there. They were dark-skinned Africans, and they became pharaohs. And
they took over the leadership of the whole Egyptian empire at a certain point. It's a fascinating episode in Egyptian history.
So, Rise of the Black Pharaohs. Then finally, we have Earth: A New Wild. This is a beautiful Blu-ray, ladies and gentlemen. It's just these great shots of animals and plains and forests and oceans and water. It's just really beautiful. So you can definitely check out Earth: A New Wild because if nothing else is on Blu-ray, and the photography is just stunning. Also, we have finally from PBS, The Rise of ISIS. ISIS, of course, are the I don't know what to say about ISIS. They're like 800 James Bond villains all wrapped up into each other. They're just bizarre. They are just the most bizarre.
They're my favorite people. No, it is. It's a horrific thing that's going on. And then just this last week, they everything that they are doing is intentionally provocative. They are trying to bait the world into just unleashing hell on them. Apparently, because they think that this is going to usher in the apocalypse.
Right.
But all it's going to usher in is a bunch of really angry nations, including a lot of angry Arab nations, who are just going to level them flat, and then it's done. And it's just such a waste. I mean, did you see the footage that they shot in the museum at Mosul?
When they
these are 7,000-year-old works of art, and they're just taking sledgehammers to them. It's
the Taliban, but do you remember right before 9/11, the Taliban did the same thing?
Buddhas.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, but the Taliban weren't doing it for PR value. The Taliban were doing it because they just,
Well, but ISIS, what they do is they recruit all these young, impressionable Muslim girls from, the UK who are very social media savvy.
I was watching. That is a big deal. That's not really making the news in the U.S., but it's a big deal in the UK because I watch BBC World on a regular basis, and there are those 3 girls, those British girls that went to Syria, and they're gone. And their families are beside themselves, and they were all lured there through social media. It's scary, man. It's really scary. Speaking of, as long as we're on the subject of religion, let's steer this into a slightly better place. Sacred Journeys with Bruce Feiler is on Blu-ray, beautiful PBS series that follows Americans as they go on to different religious pilgrimages, and it is really interesting, and this is actually quite uplifting in many respects. He follows people who go to Lourdes in France to bathe in the waters, Buddhist pilgrims in southern Japan who are going on this 800-mile, 88-temple journey. He follows some pilgrims in Jerusalem who, from Jews, Christians, and Muslims. There's even he follows some people on the Hajj to Mecca. Then he goes to India, bathing in the Ganges River, which is a little scary because it's really polluted, if you didn't know that. And then in Nigeria, where some Americans go to dance at the edge of the water at the Yoruba Festival, and it's a really interesting series on how people find spirituality through these religious pilgrimages. Speaking of that, did anybody see The Red Tent? Did you see The Red Tent, Mark? Based on a book.
No.
It's based on a book. This was on TV recently. It was advertised on bus benches everywhere. This is basically based on a book that kind of creates a biblical soap opera out of the very brief story of Dinah, who's the daughter of Leah and Jacob in the Bible. And it's sort of a feminist tale, as the women gather together in the red tent. What they don't tell you anywhere in the marketing for this, you know what the red tent was all about?
It was about...
That's where the women went that time of the month. They were banished to the red tent. Anyway, this is kind of it's a little bit goofy. It's nicely done, well cast, but it's not. It's sort of taking a little segment of the Bible and trying to turn it into some kind of ancient Downton Abbey thing, and it does. So.
Not into it.
Not quite into it. Let's see. What else do we have on the TV front?
We have Sons of Anarchy, Wade. Sons of Anarchy is it's wrapping it up. And the star of 50 Shades of Grey, I was making a joke there and I forgot his name.
Yeah.
What's the guy's name who's going to be in 50 Shades of Grey? He's on the show.
Charlie
Dornan, Charlie Steve, Mel Steve. Don't stop the recording.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Charlie.
No, hang on.
It's like Charlie Dornan. No, we don't even remember who the hell he is.
Hang on. No, don't stop recording.
Charlie Dornan. Charlie
Hunnam. Charlie Hunan chicken.
So unprofessional.
Don't stop the recording. Okay. Anyway, I guess that joke meant nothing now because I screwed it 17 different ways. Anyway, Sons of Anarchy. This thing wound up really kind of growing into itself. It really became a very dark and interesting and twisty kind of tale about just murder and bike riders and long beards. A lot of blood, a lot of shifting alliances. People really dig this. People really dug this show. It took a while to get going, but I think at the end it was really intense. So this is the final season of Sons of Anarchy. Comes on a Blu-ray with a little gray slipcover, and it's got a lot of extras on it. Looks good. The show is always pretty well shot, kind of down and dirty, gritty looking. And there's a gag reel, which is always weird to see a gag reel on Sons of Anarchy because it's such a dirty, gritty show. But gag reel's funny. And that's that. Also, now on DVD, we have the third season of Longmire. Now, it's a little disappointing they put this out on DVD. It shows you how little faith they have in its buying power. Anyway, this is 2 discs, 10 episodes. It's with Robert Taylor as Sheriff Walt Longmire. And, it's nice to see Lou Diamond Phillips kind of still in the game, although his hair is unnaturally dyed black, which is always kind of weird to look at. But this also co-stars Katie Sackhoff. By the way, Wade, speaking of Katie Sackhoff, now yes. This is a couple weeks old, but I emailed you the link to that Power Rangers fan film. And I said to you...
Oh, yeah.
And I said to you...
They pulled it.
That's right. So, Saban pulled it. So I said, you've got to watch between 5 minutes and 6 minutes. That's when the blood comes. Did you watch it?
Oh, you better believe it. My gosh, that was brutal.
Seriously. Can you believe that?
That was unbelievable.
People getting shot point blank in the head.
Yeah.
People getting stabbed with a knife in the eye.
I'd pay to see that Power Rangers movie.
I totally would.
I'd bring children. Hey, do that with your action figures.
You know, here's what you should say to your daughter. In the morning, we're going to watch Peppa Pig. And in the afternoon, we're going to watch Power Rangers stab you in the eye show.
That's what we're going to do.
Exactly. Anyway, Z Nation, I love zombie stuff as much as anybody, like I think I said last week. But I got to say, Z Nation, I'm getting over it. You can't just be a zombie thing. You've got to be a good zombie thing, like an over-the-top, awesome Brad Pitt zombie thing, 28 Days Later zombie thing. Z Nation is just like, all right, more zombies. Here's the thing, though. See, this show is a corrective to The Walking Dead because I think The Walking Dead is boring.
I can't watch The Walking Dead.
It's a bunch of guys. And look, I understand that the title...
I understand. I get why it has appeal, but...
Well, look, here's the thing. I understand why, like, the title The Walking Dead... That doesn't refer to the zombies. It refers to the human survivors. They're the Walking Dead. So they just drift around trying to survive, and occasionally there's a zombie, and they have these interpersonal battles. Yeah. Boring. I want zombies. And Z Nation is a bit of a corrective to that, but still, it's just not as polished as Walking Dead. I'll pass on that. Finally, if you like really bad shows that don't hold up but are just ridiculously silly, we have Heart to Heart, the complete fourth season. I bet this will sell about 17 copies. This is Robert Wagner, and
I like this show. I thought they just had a wonderful rapport.
I used to like Lionel Stander. He had that gravelly voice.
Oh, he was great. I used to see him driving around in his antique car all the time.
Did he really?
Big cigar. Yeah, I forget what it was. It was like some old Buick or something. It was like from the 1920s or 30s. It was
sounds like something he'd have. Anyway, so Robert Wagner, Stephanie Powers, this was a very stylish show at the time. They're, jet-setting detectives. Sidney Sheldon had created it. And, it's look at that.
It's the best. Sidney Sheldon also created I Dream of Jeannie. He can do no wrong.
That show sucks, too. Oh, yeah, I said it. Hill Street Blues, Season 4. Wade and I talked about Hill Street Blues a couple weeks ago. This show is legendary. It is one of my all-time favorites. It is a great show, still holds up to this day. Great cast, Daniel J. Travanti, Veronica Hamill, Bruce Weiss, Charles Hayde, and James Sicking. And it's a great show. Season 4 on DVD. It won a whole bunch of Emmy nominations. It actually won 14 Emmy nominations, and a fourth consecutive win for Outstanding Dramatic Series. This is the Season 4 of the show. Check that out. On the other end of the quality spectrum, we have Season 3 of Chips. I used to like this show because...
I love this show.
I don't know why I like this show. The show was stupid.
Because Chris Pine's dad is the chief? Is that why? Because he is.
He is. It's true.
It's Robert Pine. We have Chips to blame for Chris Pine, basically.
I don't know why I like this show. I think I was just like young and like stupid things. Anyway, it's about this Highway Patrol, California Highway Patrol. It's with Larry Wilcox and Eric Estrada. And what can I say? 23 episodes, a bunch of second unit shots of cops driving on a highway. And seriously, because real CHP officers, they do not do what these guys do.
No, I used to be always really amused at some of the episodes that they would shoot when they would shoot in Southern California locations that we knew. You'd see them; they'd cut literally as they drive past this, and then the next shot, and you go, "Wait a minute! Those two shots are like they're going east, and then they're going west 5 miles later." What's wrong with the editing on this show?
All right, finally we have the final season of Quincy. Quincy starred Jack Klugman, who passed away a couple years ago, and he played a medical examiner here in Los Angeles in the coroner's office. The thing, yes.
I once talked to Jack Klugman on the phone.
Was that before or after his voice got shot?
It was for a local election, and I was given I was doing some electioneering, and I was given a list of all the people in my precinct to call, make sure they got out to the polls, and Jack Klugman was one of them, and I was like, sweet, I'm going to call Quincy, and or I'm going to call Oscar Madison, whatever mode you happen to be in, and so I dialed the number, and this was before his throat surgery, right? When he could still talk. And it was like, oh, yes, hi, Mr. Klugman. Just want to remind you, today's election day. Oh, my God, where do I go to vote? So I told him where to go to vote, and that was that.
Doesn't it seem almost quaint that you would call a big celebrity at the time, and he'd answer his own phone?
Yeah.
Nowadays, if you called a similarly famous actor of today,
yes,
he would not answer his phone.
No. We got a couple of good ones on Stars. Stars has a couple of really interesting. They got a lot of interesting stuff going on, and they're not getting enough credit for it, I don't think. This is a David Goyer produced show, Da Vinci's Demons. This is the complete second season on Blu-ray. Gorgeous show. I'm not sure quite what I think of it yet. It's really nicely done, but the whole idea of reinventing Leonardo da Vinci as this kind of Renaissance era steampunk superhero. Is kind of this like sexy ladies' man. It's not really. That's not Leonardo da Vinci, but nonetheless, this is the world that they have invented, and with all kinds of evil intrigue with the Medicis and Rome and the Catholic Church, and it's really well done. It feels very comic booky, as you would expect from David Goyer, but. I don't know. Let's see where it goes. I mean, it seems to be pushing in interesting directions as far as the serial narrative. So, I guardedly recommend it, at least because it's just really well done. Game of Thrones seems to be a bit of an inspiration too. It's like, let's do Game of Thrones set, in Renaissance Italy with Da Vinci as our steampunk superhero. Outlander is a totally wild show, and I have no idea where this is going to go. This is coming back in April. It's on Saturdays on Stars, and the idea here is that there's this woman who's a nurse. She's reunited with her husband after World War II, and then for reasons that are entirely not explained, she's time tripped back to the mid 18th century in Scotland, where she becomes caught up in all of this Highland intrigue. This is Outlander. This is season 1, volume 1. I don't know why they don't just come out with the whole first season. Just do it. And a lot of interesting features on here about the costumes and the production value and the whole thing. Ronald Moore is the guy on this, the executive producer, and Ronald Moore of Star Trek fame.
Sure,
and,
Next Generation.
Yeah, and it definitely has. It's almost like it's caught between two genres. So I want to wait and see where it goes. But again, like Da Vinci's Demons, the production value is great. It's through the roof. Really first rate. Looks fantastic. All right, Mark, let's hit some criterions here.
Woo!
Let's do some criterions, and then I will blow through a bunch of these classic movies, and I'll let you go through some classic movies, and then we'll see where that gets us as far as the show. There's a ton to do. An Autumn Afternoon is an Ozu film on Blu-ray from Criterion for the first time. Autumn Afternoon, like all Ozu films, is sweet and soft and gentle and slow. And if you don't know what you're getting into with Ozu, you might think it's just a boring slog, but it's not. It's like watching a great artist paint a painting. It's beautiful. And this is from 1962, the famous year of Lawrence of Arabia. And you get a great audio commentary from David Bordwell, who is one of the great current living film scholars. I've used his stuff in classes, actually, so it's great to hear him actually talk. And Bordwell wrote a book called Ozu and the Poetics of Cinema, and he knows Ozu probably better than any other living scholar. So that is really, really nicely done. You also get excerpts from a 1978 excerpt of a French television program called Ciné Regards, or Ciné Regarde, in which Michel Simon, who wrote the great Kubrick book, and Georges Perec take a look at Ozu's career. That's particularly engaging. The film is just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. So An Autumn Afternoon, one of the great works by Ozu. And then, as long as we're in Japanese mode, Sword of Doom, which has been out before from Criterion on DVD, finally gets its Blu-ray debut. Mifune, the great Mifune, doing what he does so well, except not for Kurosawa in this case. The director is Kihachi Okamoto, who is not at all like Kurosawa. And the idea here is, it's about a wandering samurai and just the horrors of his journey, as the title, The Sword of Doom, should tell you. It's pretty brutal, but it is it's more a character study than it is a plot digression. So I would say definitely give this a look if you haven't seen it before, and you probably want to own it. Commentary by Stephen Prince, who's done a lot of these commentaries for Criterion, is typically excellent. And there's also a trailer and an essay. No other extras, but there don't need to be because it's damn good.
Speaking of damn good, we have two uncharacteristic films from New Wave pioneers. We have The Soft Skin from Francois Truffaut. Now, he was just following up Jules and Jim with this story, which is a little bit more... it's a little bit more, I mean, I don't want to say conventional because nothing Truffaut did was conventional, but the trappings of it were conventional for him. It's about this wealthy and famous French guy who has an affair with an airline stewardess, and he's trying to keep it from his wife. And is that going to happen? Of course not, because then there'd be no movie. Now, what's interesting about Soft Skin is that this is a time in Truffaut's life where he was really into Alfred Hitchcock. And so there is a certain Hitchcockian vibe to this thing. I mean, it's not like, it's not like Repulsion or something like the early works of, what's his name?
Elmer Fudd.
I think I'm getting Alzheimer's. Like, how can I not remember who directed Repulsion, for crying out, Jesus?
Polanski.
Anyway, so again, it's what's that guy's name? Dominique Strauss-Kahn. It's a little bit like the Dominique Strauss-Kahn story, like from like as told in 1960, 1964. So I think the film is just terrific. It's almost prophetic when you think of what's happening today. So it's called Soft Skin by Francois Truffaut. It is a little bit uncharacteristic for him, and that's what makes it so interesting. Check that out. Also, Godard, who I'm going to finally admit this to the world, which is that a lot of Godard just makes me angry.
Did you see his new film, 3D thing?
No.
Farewell to Language?
No, it's over. I don't want to.
For the radio. It was hysterical. I was on with Henry, and Henry loves it. Henry was just going on and on and on. If you close one eye while you're watching it, and then I said, I want to watch it with both eyes closed because it just drove me crazy. Henry's like, if you notice the naked people walking around are very often different people. I don't know how Henry pays that close attention to movies like that. I don't.
Sounds like he's overcompensating.
Like there's a dog barking, and then it's horrendous.
First of all, thank goodness Godard is still making films. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, we talk about Woody Allen being like the last of a breed and whatnot. I mean, Godard is still out there making movies, man.
Yeah,
God love him. I just wish that he would make like a tip. I just wish he would make just a narrative movie. There's a girl falls in love. They do some stuff. Maybe there's a murder. They break up. Big climax.
He can't do that anymore.
Anyway, this is from 1980. This is from 1980. So this is he had spent a lot of years dabbling in like video production, video stuff, and he kind of gave that up, went back to film, and directed a little thing called Every Man for Himself. Now, Every Man for Himself is about it's a bit of a it's a menage a trois, which is to say it's about three people. It's there's a television producer, there's his coworker, and his ex-girlfriend, and it's this story about it has a lot of resonance to what the French were going through at the time. So some of it will kind of go over our heads in terms of what the French working class were going through in the 1980s, but still. It's a terrific film. It was his return to cinema after years of doing a bunch of video blah blah, and it's a great Blu-ray. So it includes a video essay, new interviews with Isabelle Huppert and the producer of the film, archival interviews with the composer Gabriel Yared, which is great, a couple of appearances by Godard on the Dick Cavett Show. So this is one of the least Godard films, in that you can almost follow the plot, which is just fantastic. And you can't beat that. Every Man for Himself, available on Blu-ray from Criterion.
All right, let's get into some classic movies. Classic English language Hollywood-ish movies. I got three right here. One from Cohen and a couple from Milestone. The one from Cohen is Syncopation, which is a William Dieterle movie from 1942 that Cohen has restored from the original Library of Congress elements, nitrate elements, gorgeous-looking, fantastic movie. It's basically a jazz-era romance. Jackie Cooper plays a trumpeter. It's a wonderful romance with a piano player played by Benita Granville. And it's you're not seeing this so much for everything there, for the romance as you are for the music. It's just really great music. Benny Goodman, Gene Krupa, Alvino Ray, Jack Jenny, Joe Venuti, Harry James. I mean, it's great jazz in this movie. It's really fantastic. And William Dieterle, one of the all-time great Hollywood directors. It's just really It's just fantastic. And you get a bunch of short jazz films here. That is what's really just going to wipe people out. If you're a jazz fan, you just go nuts. You get this great movie, and then there are 9 short films, all of them jazz-oriented. There's Duke Ellington in Bundle of Blues, Artie Shaw's Class in Swing with Artie Shaw from 1939, Black and Tan Fantasy with Duke Ellington and Freddie Washington, Duke Ellington and Billie Holiday in Symphony in Black. I mean, it's just Louis Armstrong in Rhapsody in Black and Blue. It's just there's really awesome stuff here. So jazz fans will go nuts. And then we got a couple of great films here from the Milestone collection. People at Milestone, they just work their butts off, and they're just so awesome. I love them to death. I really do. They're just really Dennis and Amy are just the best. And the first one is from their ongoing Shirley Clarke collection. And Shirley Clarke was a really seminal filmmaker and did a lot of great work. Is one of the pioneers of American independent cinema. And this is from Project Shirley Volume 1. And the film is The Connection, as long as we are on the subject of jazz. This is all shot basically in a loft, and it's about a jazz quartet, and they're waiting for their dealer to come. You know, it's when jazzmen were all sort of like coke fiends and heroin addicts, and it's sort of what's going on while they're waiting for this guy to show up and bring them their stash. It's really an extraordinary film. It's almost like an ethnographic snapshot in many ways of a particular place and time, and it's unlike anything else that you'll ever see. And the camera work is fantastic, and Shirley's directing is just sublime. It's just a great pioneering film. Beautiful photography. And then also from Milestone is In the Land of Headhunters by Edward S. Curtis. This is a restoration that was done at UCLA from the UCLA Film and Television Archive. And it was included in the National Film Registry as one of these seminal works in American film history. Basically, this is the 1914 silent film that gives sort of the last glimpse of the life of Native Americans as it was dwindling. You know, by 1914, there was still sort of some sense of what was left of Native American practice from the Wild West era. But really, when you think about it, the West started evaporating in the 1870s, 1860s. Once the Civil War was over and trains were trucking west, by 1880, the Industrial Revolution is underway. 1890, we're getting movies. 1900, turn of the century, bam, it's over. So, I mean, in the matter of just a single generation, a generation and a half, a whole kind of frontier lifestyle evaporated. And so by 1914, this is sort of your last gasp to be able to depict this. And it's really extraordinary. It is a wonderful film with lots of great extras. It's got a great commentary track too. That's just superb. So anybody who is a fan, particularly of silent films and silent film history and ethnographic films, In the Land of the Headhunters by Edward S. Curtis is an absolute must.
Hello, Wade.
Howdy do.
Should I do a couple here?
Yeah, knock them out.
Okay, let's start with 101 Dalmatians from 1961. This is Disney's the latest in Disney's line of Diamond Edition Blu-rays. 101 Dalmatians is not. It's sort of a mid-range. It's a B.
Okay.
It's not an A.
I like this movie.
It's not like Sleeping. It's not like
whatever
Sleeping Beauty,
that's
whatever.
True.
It's fine. It's there's 101 Dalmatians and they run around. They have spots. And it's cute.
Cruella de Vil is the reason that everyone loves this.
Really, you know what? If it wasn't for that villain, I mean, say the villain was half as good, you'd be like, bunch of dogs.
Yeah,
running around being cute.
It's true.
It is a good. It's a beautiful Blu-ray though. They did a very good. They cleaned it up. There's a little bit of softness there because I think they used some edge enhancements to kind of sharpen it up. So it wound up being. Compromising the picture quality a little bit, but it does have a bunch of bonus features, including a new animated short and a special hosted by Disney Channel's Cameron Boyce and other stuff. So, look, if you've been collecting these diamond editions, 101 Dalmatians should definitely be on your list. First time on Blu-ray, so there's that. Then we have the 10th anniversary of Tim Burton's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. This movie is just not good enough to warrant any anniversary.
No.
It's just bizarre. This is another one of those annoying Johnny Depp put me in makeup and I'll do crazy things You know, it has none of the charm and winsomeness and none of that, like, that little buried streak of evil that you see in the other one. You know what I mean?
His performance is basically channeling Carol Channing. It is. He's acting like Carol Channing in the whole thing. God. The voice, the whole thing.
Anyway, so that's not good. Equally not good is this really bizarre, misbegotten adaptation of War and Peace with Audrey Hepburn, Mel Ferrer, and Henry Fonda. This thing was directed by King Vidor. It's 3.5 hours long, and I got to tell you, this thing is just terrible. This thing was just totally misbegotten. It's 3.5 hours, yet you don't even get into the characters at all. Audrey Hepburn is way too winsome and sweet to really play this role.
It's a strange movie. It really is. And the Russian film, which I have seen projected, by the way, which takes all of like 10 hours. I saw it at the American Cinematheque with a lunch and a dinner break.
Yeah,
and that was spectacular. But even that doesn't really capture the book. It's an unadaptable book. It shouldn't be messed with.
It really is. Yeah. Anyway, we also have on Blu-ray, which is kind of nice, Munich. Now, Munich is a weird little bird in the Steven Spielberg filmography. It's not good enough to be great, not bad enough to be terrible. I just feel like, you know what, it's weird for a Spielberg film to not give me someone to root for. You know, at the time, Eric Bana was becoming like the new it guy, whatever. Yeah. And I just didn't know what to make of this movie. It's a curious
Daniel Craig's in it.
Daniel Craig plays
a Jew. I don't know who thought that would be convincing.
It's the role he was born to play.
I don't know. That's the second time he's done it, you know. He did it also.
James Bond's Jewish?
He is.
Wow.
No, he also did it in that Ed Zwick movie. Remember the Ed Zwick movie about the Jews who go out into the what was it called? And they're out in the wilderness and they're fighting in the
Exodus?
No.
Star Wars?
No. See, now you're going to make me look it up. What was it called?
Anyway, this is just a very unfocused and curious little movie with no heart and not much passion to it. I know what drew
Defiance.
That's right. I know what drew Spielberg to the story, but I just feel like it didn't really hit the spot for me.
Yeah.
Then finally we have The Sure Thing, which is probably the best in the bunch I just reeled off. This is Rob Reiner. Come on, this is part of Rob Reiner's amazing run of hit after hit after hit. You know, Spinal Tap and Stand By Me and Sure Thing and Harry Met Sally. You know, people don't realize that Rob Reiner, although we forget about him now, he had like 8 consecutive great movies. And this is one of them, one of the early ones. This is with John Cusack and Daphne Zuniga, who at the time I thought was delicious. Now she's probably not that delicious. Anyway, the 20th anniversary of Sure Thing has a commentary with Rob Reiner and a bunch of featurettes, like on the casting and on the wardrobe. So this is a good film. I think this film is just sweet and terrific, and it's definitely right there in that sweet spot of Reiner's career when he's doing like Princess Bride and other great films. So check it out. It's Sure Thing.
By the way,
it's a good teen film.
You realize John Cusack just had the biggest opening weekend of any movie in his entire career. Did you know that?
Yeah, but how many sorts of those films has he been in?
No, I mean $55 million opening weekend.
Huh?
A $55 million opening weekend. John Cusack. Did you not know this?
Is this a joke?
No, it's true. John Cusack is starring in a movie that just opened with $55 million opening weekend.
Okay, what's the punchline?
It's not a punchline. Dragon Blade.
What's Dragon Blade?
Dragon Blade is one of the top films that just opened in China on Chinese New Year, which is the big movie opening weekend every year. It is about Roman soldiers fighting medieval Chinese warriors. Jackie Chan plays the Chinese general, and John Cusack and Adrian Brody play Roman soldiers.
You know what I love about that story? Here's what I love. We are bending over backwards to open our films in China, but now it turns out that China's not even paying up.
No, they're making their own movies. I've been saying this for years. They're just going to use the infrastructure to make their own movies, and then they're just going to kick us out and go, thanks for building stuff. That's what they're going to do.
But I have a feeling that whatever. But my sense is that whatever money needs to be returned to the American studios from China is not being forked over.
Of course not. Never is. Okay, let's blow through some Warner stuff here. We've got the Frank Darabont collection, which was part of our Oscar-winning swag package for the Oscar pool. Frank Darabont collection is beautiful Blu-ray editions of The Green Mile, The Majestic, and The Shawshank Redemption, all in one big splashy package, all to remind you that Frank Darabont has not made anything since. That's kind of it.
Well, he was a showrunner of Walking Dead for season 1. And that was it.
How do we get that guy back into Shawshank mode?
Well, you know what it is? He needs to do something else besides a Stephen King adaptation.
Yeah, he does. Well, anyway. Anyway, it's a good collection. It's got all the extras and all the bells and whistles. From the Warner Archive people, we've got a 4-movie collection of musicals. These are all 4 really terrific Blu-ray musicals that have been released either as part of the either on their own or as part of the Warner Archive collection. And they have included in this Singin' in the Rain, Calamity Jane, The Bandwagon, and Kiss Me Kate. And you also get 2D and 3D versions of Kiss Me Kate, incidentally, and a whole bunch of collectible art cards. It's great. So if you have these other films already in some other form, not including the special anniversary edition of Singin' in the Rain, I think this is a good upgrade, and it would be a good double dip, and get rid of those other ones and get this, because it's nice and it saves you space on the shelf. Great Blu-ray set. And then also from the Warner Archive collection, we have a new Blu-ray, which is great. Far from the Maddening Crowd, the original. It's great.
No, they're remaking that.
I know. Well, it's Thomas Vinterberg's new version,
yeah,
which looks
it's gonna be awesome.
Good. Doesn't it look great?
It's going to be awesome.
Oh, have you watched that trailer?
Yes, that's why it's going to be great.
The trailer's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you realize I watch that every single day? I do. I wake up, I put that trailer on, it makes me feel good about life. Makes me forget about ISIS.
Italian ISIS? Ooh, if ISIS opened in Italy, they'd be Italian ISIS. Like the.
I don't. You realize they're threatening to invade Italy. It's not going to happen, but if I lived in, imagine if ISIS were like in Baja, Mexico, and they were threatening to cross the border into California. It's kind of creepy, right?
It's not going to happen.
That's how close they are to Italy. Anyway, no, John Schlesinger directed this, and we love John Schlesinger. John Schlesinger was
of course,
just
Midnight Cowboy.
Just so stylish. This is a terrific 3-hour adaptation, obviously, of the Thomas Hardy novel, which is just, a lot of people hate Thomas Hardy. Our good friend Andy can't stand Thomas Hardy because things happen by happenstance in Thomas Hardy novels. But it's just great. Terrence Stamp, just young and just brilliant. Alan Bates, Peter Finch, Julie Christie. That is just a killer British cast. And really, it is just wonderful. It is just absolutely wonderful. And obviously, the Vinterberg film, if it even comes close to this, and it may surpass it, they will both be great. They will be 2 great versions of a great novel, and I will be fine with both of them. So I am eager to see what Carrie does stepping into Julie's shoes.
Well, Vinterberg, who directed The Celebration, which is where I first discovered him, like devastating.
He's great.
He's great.
He's great. Here are some other Warner Archive releases. Shirley Temple in Kathleen. This is when she was no longer young enough to be cute, but she wasn't old enough for anybody to take her seriously. She was like 12 or 13 years old at this time. It's okay. It's an okay film. It's a very, very nice transfer. They do a really, really good job of it. It's just about a young girl and trying to sort of improve her relationship with her father, who's a widower. And she has a stepmother, and it's one of those kind of through the eyes of a young girl trying to bring her family together and achieve wholeness again. It's a good little film in general. It just doesn't sort of wow you like you would expect a Shirley Temple film to do. Much better is a new, long overdue widescreen edition of Star 80. Thank goodness. You realize the only edition of Star 80 that we have ever had has been pan and scan. We've had a crop pan and scan version of Star 80 from day one on DVD. They never widescreened it. Now we finally get Star 80 right here, widescreen, thanks to the Warner Archive Collection. God bless you. Long overdue.
Who would even release a pan and scan DVD?
I don't know. This is the early days of DVD. It was the first one. It hasn't been done since. Bob Fosse wrote and directed this. It was his last film. Amazing cinematographer by Sven Nykvist. I actually worked at the theater as an usher when this thing opened, and I remember when they were doing the tests of it. I didn't know who Eric Roberts was. Didn't know him from Shinola at the time. His performance in here is chilling. This is Eric Roberts killing it, right? And it's, of course, if you don't know, it's the story of Dorothy Stratton and her psychotic husband and how she was killed. And Marielle Hemingway plays Dorothy Stratton, who, of course, is the Playboy Playmate, who was in Galaxina, among other things. And Bob Fosse, this is really him doing what he does at the very best. I remember very well when Bob Fosse came in to do a sound check. He showed up wearing lederhosen. So help me, I'm not kidding. When you're Bob Fosse and you have that career behind you, kill yourself, wear lederhosen, do whatever you want. We also have Adventure in Baltimore with Robert Young, Shirley Temple, and John Agar. This is another, Shirley Temple in her awkward stage movie. This is a little bit better. This is charming and has a certain, a certain big studio flair to it. She's older. This is she's getting to be kind of a better adult actress at this point. And Robert Young is lovely in this. Last two films from the Warner Archive collection. The Wild Affair, which has a lovely kind of semi-performance from Terry Thomas, who we always enjoy. But really, the star of this is Nancy Kwan, who doesn't. Boy, I kind of struggle with this. It's an interesting film that kind of exists in a different time and place, and the racial politics of this are a little difficult now, but still, it's worth watching, especially when you consider how difficult it still is for Asian performers in Hollywood. Really, really difficult. So, Nancy Kwan, the tagline here: "Can a secretary say no when her boss says yes?" Kind of tells you everything you need to know. And then lastly, Michael Collins gets re-released again, the Neil Jordan biopic starring Liam Neeson as the Irish independence fighter. I think this is a great film. It totally got dissed at the time. Fantastic Chris Mengi cinematography. Chris Mengi's just one of the geniuses of all time as far as cinematography goes. Anthony Pratt, great production design. Really a great biopic. The only thing that doesn't work for me in it is Julia Roberts. I think she was really miscast, but otherwise, really first-rate film. So glad that is out again. And all right, Mark.
Peppa Pig. It's time for Peppa Pig.
No more Peppa Pig. But we are going to. I will let you cover the Twilight Time releases this week, which are all available at ScreenArchive.com. ScreenArchives.com. Is where you get the Twilight Time titles. A great list of these. And Mark, when you're done with those, then I will plow through the Olive releases, and that may take us to the end.
We have Dustin Hoffman's in Lenny, a film that is finally out on Blu-ray. I have this on DVD. I have this on DVD.
Speaking of Bob Fosse.
Yeah, speaking of Bob Fosse, this was directed by Bob Fosse. This is Dustin Hoffman in an early role where he plays the great Lenny Bruce. Now, Lenny Bruce was, we talked about Richard Pryor last week. Richard Pryor was inspired by Lenny Bruce. Lenny Bruce, of course, a controversial comedian who would, the guy would go on stage all drugged up and just say all this crazy counterculture stuff. The guy got arrested on stage once. I mean, he is crazy, Lenny Bruce. And Dustin Hoffman plays him to the hilt. Lenny Bruce was just a tortured character, privately and publicly. The guy was just tortured. This is just a grim and yet funny and realistic portrayal of Lenny's life, and Dustin Hoffman is great in it. So there you go. Definitely check out Lenny, starring Dustin Hoffman. Also, one of my favorite Woody Allen films of all time, Love and Death. This is back when he was doing the quote-unquote funny ones. This is from 1975. I remember I had the script to this, Love and Death, and the reason why I cherished the script to Love and Death, having had it, and this is before you can get it on, there was no internet when I had the script for Love and Death. I'm not sure how I got it, but I loved the script because there was a bunch of scenes in the script that did not make the movie, so I got to sort of see Love and Death plus extra jokes. But I love Love and Death. This is one of the funniest Woody Allen films. It is absolutely hilarious.
It is so unbelievably funny. And some of it is silly funny in a way that Woody doesn't do anymore. I mean, the little bonking on the head thing that they do is...
I have a little plot of land. I'm going to build on it.
Oh, my gosh. That is so genius. That is so genius. That whole bit is so weird and so out there, and it is so unbelievably funny.
No. And I remember...
It's beyond funny.
And now that it's on Blu-ray... By the way, I bought that Blu-ray, I have to say. I love it so much. There's that famous scene, like the night before he's going to be executed, he gives this little soliloquy to the camera. And what I want to play on the Blu-ray is that when he's done with the soliloquy and they fade to black, and obviously Woody's on some sort of a run that he's just channeling who knows what the hell. As they fade to black, you can hear the crew laughing.
Really?
Right at the very end. In fact, I bought the Blu-ray. I'll play it for you. Oh. At the very end, as they fade to black on that soliloquy scene, right the night before he's going to die, you can hear the crew laughing.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Because it's just too damn funny.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Anyway, To Sir with Love is just a wonderful film. This is from 1967. This is one of the classic, earnest teacher teaching of course, all white kids about love and life. and it was adapted from a book. And the thing that this thing was directed by James Clavell, which is really weird because James Clavell is a novelist.
Yeah.
He wrote Shogun.
Yeah.
And
yet and Taipan.
And Taipan.
And yeah.
And he's a terrific writer, and it turns out he knocked out of the park with this movie, which is just terrific. One of Sidney Poitier's most iconic roles, and it's a great Blu-ray. It's got an audio commentary with Judy Geeson, who was in the film, a bunch of film historians, and there's another audio commentary by the author of the source work, and it's great. It's just a really terrific film, and Poitier is just charismatic and energetic, and it resonates all the way through the years, right up to today. And you got to check out To Sir with Love. Again, it's the original inspirational teacher movie, and it's great. Sidney Poitier is just great. Stormy Weather from 1943. This is just an amazing film. This film is a bit of a classic because it has like this all African American cast. Now we're talking 1943 here. So it's got an all-African American cast. It's got Lena Horne doing some musical numbers. Cab Calloway, Fats Waller is just great. I mean, this film is just classic. Fats Waller does Ain't Misbehavin', which is just the classic song. And I love this film. This film is it's beautiful. It's black and white, but it's so beautifully shot, and the music is great. And it's just this like iconic kind of look at the music of that era and how a lot of the great music of that era was all done by African Americans. You wouldn't even know that.
True.
They got no credit for being like the ones who were doing the best music. Like, sure, Glenn Miller was around.
They invented an entire genre of American music.
They really did, and this is all about that. And so it's just great. Stormy Weather is just absolutely wonderful. So, got to check that out. Also, finally, from 1967, we have the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. This one stars Jason Robards, George Segal. And there's nothing funnier to me than a young-looking George Segal. I don't know why. Anyway, this is directed by Roger Corman, produced by Roger Corman as well. This is all about the world-famous St. Valentine's Day Massacre. It's really good. It's very violent. It's slam bang. It's gutsy. It's a lot of fun. It's one of Corman's best directed films because he took this pretty seriously, and it's good. It's good stuff. Special features. It's okay. There's an isolated score track and a featurette with Roger Corman remembering the film. Otherwise, it's really that you're really there for the movie.
And again, you get these by going to ScreenArchives.com. There are 3,000 copies available of the Twilight Time titles. They do come all with the isolated scores. And let me just say, I always thought that the St. Valentine's Day Massacre was orchestrated by George Raft. Wasn't it? You're not getting the joke.
Now, when you say George Raft,
I mean because the opening scene of Some Like It Hot is the St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
That is true. I thought it was arranged by Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis.
They witnessed it.
What?
And then they had to
run
the
floor in a train
throw
and
on some
like
frocks. Yeah. Okay, folks. Olive Films, who also licenses out these studio titles, has been on an absolute tear recently. And here is what you get. They've been getting a lot. First off, we get a bunch of great exploitation films from the 60s. Really great stuff. Psych Out with Susan Strasberg, Dean Stockwell, and Jack Nicholson. The Ultimate Head Trip. This is just really an awful lot of fun. Directed by Richard Rush before he did legit stuff like the Stuntman. We get Peter Fonda and Nancy Sinatra in The Wild Angels, which was the precursor to Easy Rider. This sort of set the stage. Written by Charles Griffith, who was, of course, and produced and directed by Roger Corman. And Charles Griffith was, the guy. He was the bolt to Roger Corman's David Lean, if we want to put it in those terms. Griffith wrote all the great Corman stuff, and The Wild Angels is no different. If you like the beach movies, we've got Annette and Frankie in Muscle Beach Party and the original Beach Blanket Bingo, both on Blu-ray. They are terrific transfers. They look really good. Not set in the 60s, but not made in the 60s, is the more recent 1969 with Robert Downey Jr., Kiefer Sutherland, and Bruce Dern. Bruce Dern, who, of course, came of age in that era and in those movies, is the linkage here. Written and directed by Ernest Thompson, who's kind of fallen out of favor of late. This was sort of his last gasp. But it's an okay film. It's a little too earnest for its own good. The wonderful Kiss Me Stupid, a Billy Wilder film with Dean Martin, Ray Walston, and Kim Novak. By the way, a friend of mine pointed out, now that Leonard Nimoy is gone, we've lost Robin Williams, Leonard Nimoy, and Ray Walston, television's three most famous aliens.
Aww.
They're all gone. The aliens have left the building.
By the way, if you go to Time Magazine, they last week, but Time Magazine posted an interesting essay about Leonard Nimoy, written by Martin Landau.
Wow.
It's pretty good, right?
That's great.
Martin Landau writing about Leonard. Of course, Leonard Nimoy and Martin Landau both appeared in Mission Impossible.
Yes, and they were in great sci-fi series together. Not together, but separately.
Space 1999.
But which had the same producer. You realize that?
Who's that?
The last season of Star Trek and both seasons of Space 1999 were produced by what's his name? The guy
Gene Kuhn.
Not Gene Kuhn. The guy everybody blames for ruining Star Trek.
Oh, Friedberger, Friedlander,
Fred Friedberger.
Yeah,
Fred Friedberger. That's it. Anyway, it's small world, small industry, smaller world. Small world, smaller industry. Small industry, smaller world.
It's a small world after all.
It is. So anyway, Kiss Me Stupid, Billy Wilder film, which is a lot of fun. I mean, again, not one of Billy Wilder's best, but he wrote it with Izzy Diamond, as he did many of his best stuff, and you get some great Gershwin songs in here, and, come on, it's got Dean Martin. Give me a break. Lady Chatterley's Lover has been done 1,000,000 times. This is the one with Sylvia Kristel, who, of course, was of Emmanuel fame. Kind of a cheesy version of the story, but it's got some cult value. And it was made by Menachem Golan and Yoram Globus in 1981 as a way of kind of trying to make Cannon Films, I don't know, a soft-core house? I don't get it. But anyway, it is an oddity from the Cannon days. One of my favorite films of all time. I'm so happy that this is finally out with its amazing Lalo Schifrin score and its brilliant Rudy DeLuca and Carl Gottlieb screenplay. An amazing cast that includes Dennis Quaid, Barbara Bach, Shelley Long, Avery Schreiber, and Jack Gilford. But most importantly, it stars the best, the most talented, the genius of the Beatles, Ringo Starr. We are talking about the one, the only, the immortal Caveman, now on Blu-ray.
Barbara Bach, she was so hot back then.
And she's still with Ringo. That's lasted.
I know.
Like, who would have thunk?
This also stars John Matuzak, the football player.
Yeah. You've seen this film. You've seen Caveman, haven't you?
Yeah, it's 30 years ago.
It's so bad, it's awesome. It's so terrible.
Is there such a thing as so bad it's awesome?
It's so terrible. It's a work of genius. I don't think they realized how brilliant they were in making it. Bob Hope and Bing Crosby in The Road to Hong Kong, joined, of course, by Joan Collins. And the story here, I don't know if you know this, in The Road to Hong Kong, they have to allow Joan Collins to die, or else Kennedy doesn't get assassinated, and the Russians...
Is that your Leonard Nimoy City on the Edge of Forever reference?
Yeah, something
Good job.
like that.
Exactly.
Jack Lemmon and the wonderful Verna Lisi, who passed away recently, star together in How to Murder Your Wife, a film I did not expect Olive Films to mine out of the MGM library, but they did. And what an unusual and yet welcome film to yank out. A very nice Blu-ray transfer. It has not really been restored, so given whatever flaws are in the elements, and the elements leave much to be desired. This was made in 1965. The Blu-ray is better than expected. I will say that. It's certainly better looking than expected. It's a nice looking film to begin with. Also from that particular. Well, hang on. Let me jump into this first. Vincent and Teo. This is Robert Altman's rather extraordinary Vincent van Gogh biography. It's a biography of Vincent van Gogh and his brother Teo, of course. Tim Roth playing Van Gogh, Paul Rees playing his brother Teo. One of the most interesting of the Van Gogh films, maybe the most interesting outside of Lust for Life, the Vincent Minnelli film with Kirk Douglas. This is, one of Tim Roth's best performances, and a really interesting Altman film, an uncharacteristic Altman film. He wasn't a biopic guy.
No, he did a biopic of Popeye.
That's true. But it's really good. Also on Blu-ray from Olive, James Woods and Brian Dennehy in Bestseller, which I'd completely forgotten even existed. This is an okay film. I thought it was crap at the time, but it was written by Larry Cohen, who did a lot of exploitation films, Black Caesar and whatnot. Wrote Phone Booth, right? Originally supposed to be a film for Hitchcock. He wrote Bestseller, and he's a little, Larry Cohen, just prolific and a wonderful guy, and it's decent. Chattahoochee with Dennis Hopper and Gary Oldman is also with Frances McDormand and M. Emmett Walsh. Really good cast. A better than average film from that era, directed by Mick Jackson of L.A. Story fame, who hasn't done much lately, has he?
No.
Yeah, that's interesting.
See what he's done. You prattle on. I'll see what Mick Jackson's been doing lately.
More great Blu-rays from Olive as we get down here to the bottom. Robert Duvall and Lucas Haas, James Earl Jones in Horton Foote's Convicts. This is okay. With that cast, it should have been a better film. Peter Masterson directs it. He did a better job in The Trip to Bountiful. But it's a Horton Foote film, so you get that whole kind of dusty, waxing poetic in the prairie kind of sensibility to it.
TV. He's done nothing but TV.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Well, wait. So Mick Jackson directed Volcano?
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
I didn't even know that.
I
like that movie. That's a guilty pleasure movie for me. Volcano from 1997 with Anne Heche and Tommy Lee Jones and Don Cheadle.
Well, there you go. A lot of talk lately about this Shades of Grey movie. Forget it. Wild Orchid with Mickey Rourke and Carrie Otis. There you go. That's one.
No, it's 9.5. You're thinking 9.5 weeks.
No, Zalman King, man. Zalman King is where it's at. He's the guy that pioneered all that softy-core junk. This is really not a good film, but it's got that Zalman King softcore thing going for it, so somebody will like it. I remember once seeing an interview with Zalman King where he was talking about the eroticism in his movies, and the person said, "Do you realize that some people consider what you do to be pornography?" And the look on his face was like someone had just told him his mother had died. It was like this look of being unbelievably wounded, like it never occurred to him. It was so strange. It's like, wow, he really does live in his own world, doesn't he? Zalman King. The Night They Raided Minsky's has sort of gained in popularity over the years. It's become a bit of a cult thing, in large part because it was co-written by Norman Lear and produced by Norman Lear and directed by William Friedkin. And you think, Norman Lear and William Friedkin, how did that work? I would never put those two together in any universe.
But come on, Elliot Gould, Forrest Tucker,
Britt Eklund, Jason
hot.
Robards. Really, it's Denholm Elliott.
Richard Libertini's in this.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he sure is. He's also in Don't Drink the Water, the Woody Allen thing.
Is that right?
Yeah, he's very funny in that too. Hilarious, actually. And of course, in The In-Laws, he's amazing in The In-Laws. But The Night They Raided Minsky's, it was a bit of an unwieldy thing at the time. It's become a bit of a big deal since then. And then we also have Eric Roberts and Dennis Hopper and Burt Young in Blood Red, which is another Peter Masterson film that I could well do without. This is a kind of a quasi-western set in the California wine country, bloody revenge thing. And then Dangerously Close, which I'm also not that fond of, with John Stockwell, Carey Lowell. This was made in 1986, kind of one of those another bit of a cheesy canon film, directed by Albert Pune, the Hawaiian director of the
Captain America,
of the original not the TV Captain America with Red Brown, but the feature,
movie one,
the movie character, the first movie Captain America, which was also really bad. And then lastly, here are the three that I really want to make mention of that are super important before we close out the show. John Ford, Dreaming the Quiet Man. Part of our Oscar swag pack for the pool was The Quiet Man, and this is a new documentary from Olive on the making of The Quiet Man, narrated by Gabriel Byrne, who of course is Irish, appropriately so. And this is lovely. A lot of great interviews here. Maureen O'Hara among them, who recently got a special Oscar, and the original trailer, and this is just really lovely, and it's a much maligned film. I know a lot of people that like to try to rip on The Quiet Man, but I take exception to them. And then Ang Lee's Eat, Drink, Man, Woman, which was a foreign language nominee in 1994, and which I saw at the Cannes Film Festival in 1994, is just a brilliant film. I can't watch this without being just voraciously hungry. The story of a father who is a chef and his daughters, and it's kind of like it feels a little bit like a Chinese version of Fiddler on the Roof with food. But it's a great movie. It's a wonderful movie with wonderful performances. And then lastly, another Cannes Film Festival story, The End of Violence, the Wim Wenders film with Bill Pullman, Andy McDowell, and Gabriel Byrne, the subject of which is a surveillance system, that presents the existential challenge of what if we could surveil everyone at all times and put an end to violence? What compromises do we have to make as far as our freedoms and all the rest of that goes? This is an unusual movie that I'm not qualified I shouldn't say qualified. I'm not really in a position to be objective about this film because my wife worked on it. And it was in 1997 that we were at the Cannes Film Festival and got to go up the stairs, the black tie screening, the whole shindig. Got to go right in and see the celebrity screening, the evening screening, the black tie screening of this at the Cannes Film Festival, the competition screening, after which they presented the Palm of Palms at the 50th anniversary Cannes Film Festival to Ingmar Bergman, who, of course, was not there. But then everyone went on stage, all previous Palme d'Or winning directors, only one of whom was a woman, Jane Campion. That was very obvious. And that was a great evening. So I'm forever grateful for this movie for giving me one of the great evenings of my life, but I am not in a position to actually give you an objective assessment of the movie.
You know why those Cannes screenings are not very good?
Why?
No food.